Hi everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of System Link, this time for Wednesday, the 6th of August 2025. I'm your host, Jonathan Garrett, joined as always by my co-host, Mike Hazelton from the Xbox Guide. Mike, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Good to be back. It's been a while again.
Yeah, it's been a minute. For those of you tuning in live, we record this on a Wednesday at about 9, well, supposedly at 9:15. Both Mike and I have been riddled with technical errors, so apologies for the delay there. For those of you checking this out video on demand, or on Podbean after the fact, we are now hopefully looking and sounding okay and are ready to dive into some headlines from the last week or so. I wanted to kick off with something that really caught my eye, that was really intriguing to me, which was the announcement of Red Octane Games, which is a amalgamation of developers who worked on both Guitar Hero and DJ Hero, forming a new studio around rhythm action games, like rhythm games. What that looks like and what form that takes, whether we're going to go the traditional peripheral route or it's going to be something different. They have sort of built themselves around the premise of kind of trying to revive that genre. And as someone who had a weird obsession with DJ Hero, obviously we both loved Guitar Hero, but I was obsessed with DJ Hero as well. One of like 12 people that bought that. I'm like the Wii U of
We
the
both
rhythm.
got it. I
Did we,
remember
did we
we
both?
got it for Christmas,
Yeah,
whatever year that was. Yeah,
that's right.
I regret the purchase quite strongly, but it's
I
good to
have
know
no
you don't.
regrets. Yeah, no regrets at all. I was mixing it up, scrubbing the decks, as no one says. But it was great experience, and I'm glad to see that sort of the legacy of that IP has kind of found a new lease of life. Difficult at this stage to know what form that's going to take. We don't have any other details other than it's just a sort of a, they're very much a pedigree from those classic franchises, and they're being brought back in some form. So kind of definitely a watch this space moment for that one.
Yeah, Guitar Hero. It was I got DJ Hero, but Guitar Hero it was for me.
Yeah.
I rebought a PS2 and Guitar Hero so that I could play it, more recently without having to buy a modern one. And I play it in the arcades when I sit in the arcades. Hint: you should get one in for the arcade.
Great
Um,
idea.
and at university, we played Rock Band quite a lot as a house when I was sharing a house with some people. So yeah, I've got definitely good
That's
memories
really
of that
funny.
stuff. And I think
We've never
there is
talked
a
about that.
gap in the market for it.
Yeah, definitely, but we've never talked about that because in my first year in halls of residence, I had the two guitars for the 360 version of Guitar Hero, and there were so many nights of people crammed into my tiny little box room with my like even pokier ensuite bathroom. Some people like having to stand in the like doorway of the bathroom to fit in because everyone was just crowding around jamming out to some Guitar Hero. Some really like fun like social gaming memories of that. Hi Kikamori in Twitch chat. Good evening. Thank you so much for jumping in. Great to see you again on here. It's been a minute. Thank you so much for showing the support. Yeah, so I'm kind of quietly intrigued by this one. I think it's going to be really interesting. We have another sort of, well, certainly for me. I mean, I don't know what your history was with this, but Mafia: The Old Country is dropping on Friday. I have such a love for this series. I've played and completed all three Mafia games, and very much looking forward to something a bit leaner. It's not sort of going open linear. It's kind of paring it right down. It's going to be a really tight focused experience. Confirmed to be supporting both performance and quality modes on Series X, PS5 and PS5 Pro. PS5 Pro getting a VRR support as well. Nothing for Series S on the performance mode front, which is an interesting sort of caveat. We're seeing a few more games now supporting Series X but not S with a performance mode, which is, a shame, but it's becoming a bit of a reality as the gen gets further in. I am super excited for Mafia: The Old Country. I cannot wait. I love the third one. And obviously, like I say, I played the previous two when they first came out. Do you have a history with Mafia at all, Mike? Or not the Mafia, but the title? We know about your
No,
Mafia
no.
connections, but
This has to be like when you're on Gaming Arcadia and like game after game, you have to say I have no connection to this
I know.
Japanese
Get me on.
RPG.
I know. Get me on for once. Like, come on, Asa. I need you. I need you to get me on there when
So,
Mafia: The Old Country drops. I'm ready.
so that is me. That is me here. I played the EA Godfather game,
Nice.
which I imagine was quite similar.
Nice.
That's all. But I've heard really good things. Everyone I've ever spoken to about it's really looking forward to this one. I think the decision to kind of, as we've said many times on this show, be a bit more realistic with what they're trying to do with the
Mm-hmm.
game instead of going, trying to compete with massive open world action games and things. So, I think previews have been good, so hopefully it lands well.
Yeah, and well priced to like 50 quid. It's a really sort of reasonable price, I think, for that game. There is a history of, particularly with Mafia 3, with the Hangar 13 really supporting it post-launch. A lot of really good DLC for that. I bought all the DLC for that game. There was 3 different expansion packs, which were great fun. Actually meaningful DLC too. They added like narrative missions. It wasn't just sort of like a side quest or anything like that. It was proper narrative missions. Hi Kikamori in Twitch chat just asking about Plants vs Zombies Replanted. Now I get to go back to the Gaming Arcadia vibes of having no idea, have no history with that whatsoever. But people are losing their minds about it. They're like so excited about it. I played the Garden Warfare games. I loved those games, but never actually played the original. Bossnator Rocks in Twitch chat as well, mentioning that Mafia 2 was the GOAT for him, but the new one looks like it could rival it. Yeah, I spent an inordinate amount of time in the second Mafia game and the third as well. The first one less so, actually. I played the remastered version, which was a fantastic remake in terms of visual quality, but Mafia 2 definitely was leading the pack there. But I agree, I think Old Country could be on a par, at least from what we've seen so far. I want to just log a concern, though. So when we get to reviewing it, I want to just log a concern now before I played it. Some of the AI in the gameplay footage looked a little wonky to me. It looked a little bit stiff and a bit sort of like just shooting gallery. They didn't look too intelligent. And whether that sort of is just for the sake of showing it off, in a way that looks good, makes the player that's demoing it look powerful and taking them all out. But I need to see hopefully when we pick up the pad that's been addressed, because that is a bit of a concern just from what I've seen of the footage so far.
Would that be a step back? Obviously, having not played it, I don't know the standards that were set with previous games, but it would be a step back if the AI.
Yeah,
you used to imagine they've improved it.
I would hope so. It was used to be competent. It was never a standout feature of any of the 3 prior games, but it's been so long since Mafia 3, and I've played so much in the gap that it was a bit more noticeable to me in that gameplay footage. So I have a little lingering concern there, but hopefully that will be mitigated when I actually go hands on. Hanky Gamori mentioned as well. Oh, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, without going off on a tangent, I feel like AI is one of those things where you have games from 20 years ago where the AI was amazing, and you still get games now where it's like it just isn't moving in a linear upward curve. It's
not at all.
Some teams just don't bother to put the time into it.
You look
not saying that's what's happening here.
You look at
I don't think it.
Yeah.
I don't think you can expect it to be good just because it's a modern game is all.
No, I agree. I mean, you've got stuff like Uncharted 4 and The Last of Us, like both Naughty Dog titles, where the AI is superb in that game. Like, they are fantastic. And then you contrast it perhaps with something like some of the recent Assassin's Creeds, where they're a bit sort of like just fleshy kill blobs, They just don't really have much spatial awareness or instinct. Heinke Gamori in Twitch chat mentioning that I've heard Mafia 3 is really good, but really buggy. At least the remaster. So I haven't actually played the remastered version. I played the original on PS4, but need to check out that. I would happily go back and play those again. The big one, I suppose, from last week was the Battlefield 6 gameplay reveal that we got. This is one of our big headlines for tonight. And obviously this week's upcoming beta, the early access beginning tomorrow and Friday, with the open weekend beginning Saturday, Sunday, followed by weekend 2, which will be a 4-day event, adding a couple more game modes like Team Deathmatch and also a 4th map into rotation. I, in very typical EA fashion, with their sort of very like big production value events, which they've often done for things like Apex, or when they've popped up at E3 in the past or Summer Game Fest. There was, and I included it in a little montage. I put together a video up on the Burly Bird channel around, their road to redemption, hopefully trying to find a way to nail the launch. There were some really wonky, very E3 press conference moments in this where, like, it was very, very heavily scripted, and they sort of trotted out like a revolving door of people that are not good public speakers. It was all that sort of those classic EA missteps. The favourite one that I always think of, and this won't mean much to any of you, but something that Mike and I always used to find so funny. There was an E3 one year with a guy talking about, I think it was Command and Conquer on mobile.
It was.
And when he introduced himself, he said his name and then went. And for audio listeners, if you couldn't catch that, who just took this massive in-breath and sighed after introducing themselves and just felt really uncomfortable. And there was a great moment that I captured in my montage where a guy sort of like tennis matched the teleprompter to him and got it to his next line. He just goes, "All right, with absolutely with no real genuine enthusiasm behind it. It was horrible.
I really like the screen. Works really nicely for what Battlefield is. So I think it's great concept to kind of set it up like that though.
Oh, the surround setup, like sort of IMAX style screen. Yeah, that was really immersing, wasn't it? Bossinator rocks. Now, I won't go into too much detail here because I know you'll probably be under an NDA, but I know that you've done a fair bit of game testing across various publishers, and that's something you've done in as a sort of a side project for yourself. Coming into Twitch chat saying that he's played Battlefield 6 already, so he's got the inside scoop on it. He was mentioning in our Discord earlier today that servers seem pretty stable in that early release version. I did see something that was a bit troubling, that there's a queue already for the game on Steam. The servers had hit max capacity in its lobby in the game, sort of in its preloaded form. That's making me very nervous for tomorrow night, because Mike and I are planning to stream this tomorrow.
This it would be so, like, I would be not surprised. I will be surprised if we can play it tomorrow. Like, I would be happily surprised, but it just, the number of times we've gone into Battlefield betas and Battlefield launches and just not been able to play for like a week because of the servers, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But they know how many people are going to play.
They know, and it's not a surprise. And they've come up. The worst thing is not only do we have the classic line, I've made fun of them for this both on social media and on here, where they'll say like, we couldn't possibly have anticipated the demand. Yes, you fucking could. You had a beta, but also the sales projection. You know, that dreadful thing where they're like, we're anticipating 100 million players, which is more than every Battlefield game combined. Well, if that's your target, support it, you know? Come on now. Chronic, good evening. Thank you so much for jumping in mid Jonathan Rant. Yeah, exactly. So, remains to be seen. Tomorrow night was always going to be a Brucey bonus Burly Bird live stream, so we'll see if that comes together. I don't actually know what time the beta for early access goes live our time. I would imagine it's quite early Pacific time, but of course that's going to be later in the day for us. So I don't quite know what that's, you know, whether a lot of this stuff will have been, you know, the sort of early hours wonkiness kind of ironed out by the time we get, you know, we'll probably be streaming around 10 p.m. UK time tomorrow, if we can get it working. Like, that's a big if. I think as a backup plan, Mike, we should just play the finals if it doesn't connect. If we've gone live and it doesn't connect, you know, we'll announce it in the Discord. If we've got set up in the game and it's completely melted, then we won't worry. We won't bother. We'll just jump back in on Saturday for the squad session. Shout out to that, by the way, for anyone that hasn't signed up for that yet. We're doing our first Burly Bird Media squad session this Saturday. At 9:15 on the final. So just if you are up for that, sign up in our Discord, jump in there and check that out. Bossinator coming in saying there's loads of really good new features, and visually, my god, it's one of the best looking games I've ever seen in my life, with all the physics and explosions. Great to see that they have those features. Like, I really like the look of that Dragon Revive thing that they showed in the gameplay showcase. The combat roll, the crouch sprint, all that stuff, that traversal stuff looks really cool. Something that gave me faith actually in this sequel, this follow-up, after completely burning through my goodwill for Battlefield after 2042, was them saying they're not going to be doing the sort of themed skin packs and, like, you know, like the celebrity tie-ins that Call of Duty has. They're going to try and keep it, for the most part, quite grounded. And I hope, there was someone I saw, I forget, I wish I could credit this YouTuber for this, apologies for this, but I saw something pop up on my feed, which was someone imagining that there's like a single relatively high up developer that's just holding EA back. Like, that was the premise of his video, the idea that just going, no, please just let us release it at $70 with no wacky skins and just make the open beta weekend available for everyone. Like, there's just someone holding it back, hopefully, that, you know, to keep the nonsense away. But
yeah, I think it will be hard to resist the, like, I think they'll just get stupider and stupider. You'll start off and it'll just be like gold plated gun and stuff, and then eventually it will get more and more stupid. But hopefully we'll get a good 6 months in before you get anything that's completely out of place. But I haven't watched much on it because I kind of want to be going in fresh. But from the trailers, it just looks like old school Battlefield, which is exactly what I want. Even with the new features, like, they don't look out of place. And it's got very much got the visual style of the previous games. The map design looks so much better, like you said in your video. My biggest complaint with 2042 was the maps. The shooting felt okay. It was the maps and the destruction, which kind of went hand in hand, because you couldn't destroy the maps because they were badly designed to be indestructible. And So yeah, can't wait to play. Hopefully we get the chance.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we'll see. Obviously, if this all comes together tomorrow night, we'll keep everyone up to date on the Discord. Bossinator mentioning a little quick live fact drop for us here. At 9 a.m. it goes live for us tomorrow, so there'll be a full day of people
You'll be testing it for us then.
I will. Yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll be trying to do a little shit test on that, try and get my rank up, and I'll see if those servers are working, ready for the stream. Chronic coming into from YouTube saying the introduction of skins just conceptually is a blight on most gaming, and I actually I don't fully agree just in all of it. I think that there's definitely a place, like I remember Titanfall did some really fantastic, and I think that Titanfall 2 suited that kind of customization that sort of like slightly flourishes on your Titan and on your pilot, but that was a game that fit that. I think I struggle with them when it's in stuff like Counter-Strike or Call of Duty. I think though, I feel like they should be a bit more grounded. Halo Infinite was the most egregious. I mean, adding cat ears to Master Chief and holographic cat ears as well, just was so out of place and so stupid.
It's hard, isn't it? Because there's like character skins going back to like GoldenEye, which I'll be talking about later, and presumably before, I don't know, but letting people choose whatever combinations they want. We have it in Rematch. You get some really ridiculous looking characters that people put together, and it's fine for people to do that stuff, but it does kind of ruin the graphical style of the game when people are like, I prefer it that it's all aesthetically uniform in a way, like Knockout City. Anything that people do in Knockout City is fine because it suits the game world and stuff. But when people are doing it in Call of Duty and Halo, and even I would say in Rematch, some of the stuff that people can do to their characters is just, I don't know, just kind of kills your immersion in the game. And the whole monetization behind it, like, it's a good way to support the devs. But then if you're locking a particularly ridiculous skin behind a particularly high price, that's not ideal. And we obviously had all the stuff with Call of Duty where you've basically got cheat skins that people can buy.
Well, yeah, some of that stuff can be really egregious, and they were a bit slow to respond to the balancing of that, which always was really frustrating as a player. Bossnet are mentioning on Twitch that there's a couple of maps where, like, at the moment they're still working on the balancing. So, like, there's a particular map that there's like a tank you can get where it spawns, and it just basically means once you get in it, you win. So there's obviously still some work to be done.
Battlefield for me, I don't care how unbalanced the maps are, and I think you and me, we will go on a vendetta.
We will die on that hill.
Tank,
yeah,
we will go and get that tank.
Yeah, yeah.
If we die,
we'll plant a flag in like one base, right? Like, we'll just go in one part of the map and be like, we're gonna hold this down. Whether the entire rest of the map is gone, we're gonna hold down C or something. Like, we're gonna pick a point and make it ours.
I think half the time I don't even notice if our team's won or not at the end, which probably speaks to my like team player like ability at Battlefield. We just go off, we do what we do, and if we lose, hopefully we've held a base for 5 minutes or something.
We're contributing though. We're not parking up and camping. We're not just farming kills or sniping. I want to give a shout out actually to Battlefield Hardline, one of my a very underrated Battlefield game, because they introduced both the zip line and the grapple hook, where you could literally like hop up on a skyscraper and like find where people have parachuted down and like jumped in, and like it was like the anti-camping equipment. And no other Battlefield game has done it since. I've seen that in this one, they've got the assault class, I think, has got like a deployable ramp where you can like run up into the second floor of a building, which is really cool.
Yeah,
it's a nice little feature. Chronic mentioning Fortnite's fine because it's built around that concept, but with hardcore games like COD, Battlefield, and Gears, it just feels like they're not designed for garish skins, and I think that's a fair point. It's got to fit the world. Something like the finals. I think the finals, actually, I have no issue with that. It's a game show. It's framed as a game show, and I think that works. And most of the maps are fairly bright, and it's not a sort of grounded shooter. Deliberately, I mean, when you die, you explode into coins. I think the conceptually that game fits that. Jess Hardly Knows coming into Twitch. Good evening. Great to see you. It's great to have you back. I know you've been on your Scotland adventures recently, so thank you so much for jumping back in. So just switching gears now, we've got a Switch 1 price increase happening in the US and Canada right now, which I've never, Mike, I've never done anything like this. This confounds me. Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, current gen. Switch, I suppose, technically last gen, but they're wonky releases anyway. Every single platform has gone up in price. I've never known anything like it. I don't think there's been any other point in history, other outside of like special edition re-releases or like a terabyte follow-up for a console. I mean, the launch console being more expensive further into the generation. I've never known anything like it.
I mean, I think we're as most people that are, you know, of a certain age now will say we've had a shit like 15 years or so of economy to deal with. I think there's a bit of a perfect storm that's caused it. Nintendo, I am skeptical of Nintendo's need to increase the price of the Switch based on the hardware that's in there.
And the sales.
It's not quite. It's not quite like Xbox, especially Series X and PS5, PS5 Pro. I think there's those components are still expensive as far as I am concerned.
They've got their more expensive Switch. It's called Switch 2. They have it.
Exactly. I don't know what they're
it's crazy.
What they're thinking.
Is it tariffs? Yeah. Is it just like is it this tariffs thing and the world economy just being up the jacksy right now and just in a terrible state?
I don't know. Is it? Surely you need to sell them because it's dead stock. You've got to get rid of them, so you can just focus on the Switch 2. Unless they're thinking, if it's expensive enough, people will just buy the Switch 2 anyway. I don't know. Isn't it?
I really don't know. Sticking with the theme of revenue, now I had feelings about Microsoft's recent annual revenue announcement where they talked about their 500 million users, Game Pass turning over 5 billion, and their most profitable year for Game Pass ever, which is very interesting when a lot of conversation and discourse seems to continue around its profitability and sustainability. Within about 3 weeks, after they lay off 9,000 people, I just think it's tone deaf. But whether I needed to quantify this with you, I wanted to kind of talk this through. Am I just putting taking a position that's like a contrarian here because it's not like it doesn't feel good for 9,000 people to be laid off and then them celebrating their incredible sales numbers? Is this just because the bias is that always going to be in favor of people having their jobs and able to sustain a career and their families, etc.? Or am I just doing that because that it's easier to paint Microsoft as the bad guy? Are we able to? What my point here, I think, really in a very long-winded way is, am I able to call out their piss poor management of their first party and their developer infrastructure while still going, oh, that is impressive for them to have turned over? Like, can those things be mutually exclusive?
Yeah, I think it's fine. But like the timing is bad. There are other times of year where they could have laid those people off if they didn't want it to be this close to an earnings call or briefing or whatever it was. I also think we talked about it a few weeks ago. The Game Pass profitability thing is just irrelevant to me because it doesn't factor in development costs. So also these people that have been laid off, a lot of them were developers. So that doesn't even, it's not like they're even increasing the profitability of Game Pass by laying off the developers.
No.
Because those aren't the people, those costs don't factor into Game Pass. So it's, I don't know, the revenue as a whole, I guess, was impressive. But you talk about Game Pass profitability. For me, it's not really going to be profitable because they've bought Activision. And that's Game Pass is almost never going to be profitable because they bought Activision. There's so many different ways of looking at it, and kind of Microsoft have their way, which is they don't bother taking into account development costs, which is a bit ridiculous.
Well, it's kind of a fascinating way of balancing the books, isn't it? Of course, it looks good on paper when you don't factor in an enormous cost of your first party.
Yeah, like I guess they must have a way of as if they've paid their own developers to license the game for Game Pass or something, some sort of way of doing it. But they're very I don't know if cagey is the right word, or I need a word that's a bit more sly than cagey in how they present their earnings. It's
slippery.
If I wouldn't want to invest in. I wouldn't want to invest in Microsoft other than for the fact that they appear to pay out really well, just because they don't seem to put an honest report forwards.
Well, given that their operating income was up ultimately for even though the hardware was down, that has to include development costs, surely. That overall operating income.
I think it was only income though, isn't it? Not profit. I don't know if they reported on profit, did they?
Oh, that's a good point.
I
That's
think
a
it
good...
may have. Normally they only talk about, like, as a whole, they only talk about
revenue, don't they? They don't actually talk
revenue.
about, like, yeah.
And because
We'll do a live fact check.
but it should be based on the thing for me is the number of games that are in the PlayStation chart. It is a really good story for Microsoft because it vindicates their approach, and that's if you aren't still really annoyed that they've gone down that route, I think it's a really strong case that they were right to do that. And also, you know, as a Xbox fan, you can be a bit, happy to see that all these games are doing so well on PlayStation, but there isn't a big enough audience on Xbox consoles to sustain that stuff. So I think for me, that's the good news story out of Microsoft at the moment is that Xbox games are dominating on PlayStation, rather than the. I just don't think you can trust anything they say in those.
Yeah,
reports.
I mean, here's overall it's an 18% increase in revenue up to 76.4 billion. I mean, obviously that's not profit, right? And 23% increase in operating income, which is up to 34 billion. So to me, operating income, if revenue was 76, then income as in, I feel like that's their equivalent of sort of like, it doesn't say profit though, does it? But that, given that they've given us those two figures, that would say to me that 34.3, and this is Microsoft, not Xbox. This is Microsoft as a whole. Don't
what do they give for Xbox? Do they give any?
They didn't. Then
this is the problem.
that.
It's useless, isn't it? What's the?
Yeah.
What are we supposed to do with that?
Xbox could be absolutely tanking, but Game Pass pulled in 5 billion in revenue. So it as a whole, Microsoft's increased
it's so hard
their income, but it's so hard to factor that out. Like you say, the big takeaway, isn't it, is the success of their third-party strategy of them releasing their games elsewhere, and it has forced Sony to scramble. We've seen that job posting. We've seen obviously Helldivers coming over here, which I never thought we'd see. I really believe that Helldivers was locked to PlayStation, and this strategy does make sense when you look on paper. You look at the console market stagnating. There's no growth there, but there is growth on PC and in subscriptions. So go where you're going to make some more money. If these, I would not be surprised if we see other PlayStation franchises now make the jump. Nothing is off limits anymore.
I think it's just the easiest route for Xbox was not to try to take market share from PlayStation. It was to do Game Pass, basically. Instead of trying to make it Xbox, it was to have Game Pass on PC and put the games on PlayStation, rather than trying to get PlayStation owners to buy Xboxes. I don't know where PlayStation would get increased console sales from, other than PS4 owners buying PS5s,
which we've seen they haven't adopted in nearly the same way. It's obviously sold incredibly well, but it has still fallen well short of PS4's lifetime sales. And Series X and S isn't. I don't think they've outsold the Xbox One, have they? Or if they have, it's only just.
Yeah, it was kind of tracking alongside it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
On the profit thing as well, I think Game Pass without first party is very poor. Has been poor for a while without first party, which is seems a weird thing to say, but I just think because obviously it would be poor without first party with the day one games and stuff, but when they're talking about profit, if they're not factoring in any of the development costs of their own titles, it's like, of course, Game Pass would be more profitable than ever, because apparently they're paying less to third-party developers than they've ever paid. We've seen had a few developers complaining that
the deals are drying up a little bit.
The fees have really gone down. We're seeing far fewer third-party games coming into Game Pass. We've had price increases on Game Pass, so I mean, if it wasn't more profitable, you'd be really worried about the service.
Given the cutbacks of the contracts and the increase in price, Boston mentioned that it's going up to $14.99 for Ultimate. I think it might even be slightly higher than that. I think it's $16.99.
I've been quite close this month to cancelling it, because I've cancelled before just for a couple of months, and it's kind of one of those periods where I'm mostly playing free to play stuff. Rematch I can just buy for 20 quid or whatever it is. I've bought a few games quite cheaply recently that left Game Pass, and those are kind of the things that I'm playing.
Okay.
So It's just nice to have the convenience, but it's not the essential purchase for me that it is over like the winter, autumn,
Mm.
winter, spring kind of. The summer's an easy time to let it lapse if you've got that freedom.
If you've got that flexibility, yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of Game Pass additions, before we get into our deep dive tonight, we had some of August's games revealed. The big one, I suppose, was Assassin's Creed Mirage. We've seen Ubisoft really throw their lot in with Game Pass. They're supporting it quite well. We've also got Rain World, an indie title I'm not familiar with, but also Aliens Fireteam Elite. That's a great co-op game, so I'm really chuffed to have that in there now on Ultimate PC and Standard, which is really cool. And then obviously various games that are now making their way over to Standard, including Lonely Mountains, which is one of our Snow Riders, which is always a treat. Chronic, my internet is keeling over. Oh, dude, no, get on it. Get that plugged into Richard Branson? No, it's Kevin Bacon is who I was thinking of. And then Mirage is so underrated. Botonator, I agree. It's a great Assassin's Creed game. Back to the very Assassin's Creed 2 feeling. Good fun.
I saw some people querying why Assassin's Creed wasn't going straight into standard, because I feel like it was presented as though only day one releases would be locked to Ultimate. So that's a bit of an interesting move, because it's an old game. Obviously, it's a bit of a prestige title, but all the same, I think if you're on standard, you'd be a little bit annoyed to see that dropping in.
And I wonder if that's to do with it being Ubisoft, to do with that deal specifically, because it's already going to be on their Ubisoft Plus as well, on their existing subscriptions. That could be why, maybe an increased cost to get that on there. We don't quite know what the nature of the deal is with that, because Ubisoft, of course, have the cloud rights, certainly as part of the CMA settlement. They have the Activision cloud rights, so they have a bit of an in with Microsoft there. Some really just weird shit. So let's get to, we're going to keep it Xbox focused. Let's get to our deep dive tonight. We're going to be just taking a few minutes just to celebrate a little developer called Rare. We talked about this in our Discord earlier today. We're going to got a few comments I'm going to read out from our community, but it's the 40th anniversary of probably one of the all-time greats, I think, even if there's been some wonky times there. But I wanted to focus on the good. I wanted to focus on the positivity here, since they have had quite a tumultuous few months after the cancellation of Everwild. It's an opportunity for us to look back, take a minute, reflect on some of our all-time favourites. You know, I was, again, one of 20 people that bought Star Fox Adventures on the GameCube. Shout out to their one GameCube title before they got turned into a Kinect studio. But the N64 era is really where they shone, and I'm going to kick it off. The Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie. We don't talk about nuts and bolts. We don't talk about that. But Banjo-Kazooie, I actually 100%ed that a couple of years back on the Xbox Live Arcade version, or maybe the Rare Replay version actually there if it was on Series X. And I'd never done that before. Completed both, of course, on their original versions. Banjo-Tooie I had started but haven't now finished, running so much better on the current gen, because it was that poor little N64 struggled to run that thing at an acceptable frame rate. But these were just magical games. They were just cranking them out, Mike. Like it's got like obsidian levels of like just factory, but they weren't shit. Like the quality, the charm, the music. It was just a magical era of my gaming, which completely opened me up to 3D platformers and stuff that was, you know, so disruptive. Like Conker, such a disruptive, weird little game. We can ignore the second half, but the first half is just beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't play Conquer until Live and Reloaded came to the original
okay,
Xbox.
Cool.
Amazing. That was the first time I played it ever. So, and I've completed it for the first time on Series X. So,
nice.
Oh yeah, I was late to that one. Banjo, we never owned. We used to rent it a lot of from Blockbusters repeatedly. So we never got that far into it, but
I did that with them. I did that with Donkey Kong 64. I did that because it came with the expansion thing.
Lila Wars was in terms of games that I completed, because Banjo, like in my memory, I feel like they like really almost defined me as a gamer, but we didn't complete it. So it's Lilac Wars we completed, and that was so memorable. So many.
I did so many runs on Lilac Wars, like the different being able to take the different routes and like the secret levels that you could do depending on certain criteria. The
end was so hard, and it's just with quite a few Rare games actually, especially those if you were renting them, you'd like play the first 3 or 4 levels, then you'd have to give the game back, or you'd start the game again and just play those same levels, because you'd get to like a difficulty spike later in the game, or say in Banjo you'd get to a bit where you can't find the something you're looking for. Back before we could look it up on the internet, and then so you just start again, and all the early levels of the Rare games. I've got such good photographic memory,
and I'd have to go into town. I'd have to go to Electronics Boutique and buy the strategy guide. That's how I was going to find out how to get through it. In our Discord earlier today, I was asking about just everyone just to share their own memories and sort of standout experiences. Jessica mentioned Donkey Kong Country 1 was probably one of their like standout games they played after the fact, obviously. And Heinke Mori had also mentioned that they'd been playing Rare Replay a few years ago for the first time, and Grabbed by the Ghoulies, which underrated game. Very, very charming. Still had a little hint of that Rare magic in there before they came on with nuts and bolts and shit all over that. We also had a legend. Shout out to Stephen Murdoch, who's my co-host on Dulcet Tones, but also a regular a guest appearance on our Burly Bird live streams on a Saturday. Battletoads, he gave a shout to. It was a staple in his early gameplay life, which is really cool. Bosnetta Rocks on Twitch right now also mentioning that Star Fox Adventures is something he still plays. Awesome. Shout out. Cam.
Hell of a lot.
Go on.
I was just going to say, a hell of a lot of people missed the N64 because it was so expensive.
Yeah.
Insanely expensive to play those Rare games. So I think having them on Xbox now is a nice way for people to experience them. And a lot of them are still really hold up really well. So.
Well, certainly for the sense of game preservation and the fact that I think Rare Replay might be the greatest collection since the Orange Box. I think Rare Replay might be the best in terms of its presentation, ease of use, and how faithfully it recreates those games in a good state. Cam on Discord as well mentioned he's got a few that tough to choose from, but Conker's Bad Fur Day was top of his list as well, which is really, really cool. I absolutely adore that game. It's absurdity. Looking ahead now, I thought we've kind of indulged a bit of our. Oh wait, no, I've got to ask you about your GoldenEye in the background, because obviously we played a lot of GoldenEye multiplayer growing up. I was obsessed with the paintball mode in that, shooting the TVs out at the facility level. What GoldenEye? I'm assuming quite a positive place.
I think for me the most influential Rare game for me would be GoldenEye. I think the impact it had as like the first console FPS 3D experience like that. They redefined the controls for FPS games. Yep. Banjo, as good as it is, was coming off Mario 64, and it was very similar in terms of you jump into the pictures to get into the worlds. It was just a little bit too not that I thought this at the time. I thought it was incredible at the time, but look, in terms of like its impact on 3D platformers, Mario was there first. So for me, it was going to be between Lilac Wars or GoldenEye. I just think GoldenEye is.
Well, GoldenEye, you sort of like I would put the connective tissue as like in terms of it defining the genre. You on console, FPS is on console. It's GoldenEye to Halo, isn't it? Like that's the path. And there's probably a little segue in there for Perfect Dark, because shout out to Perfect Dark. I never played that on the N64. That was one that I completely missed. Went back to that.
Late, wasn't it? I think it was quite late.
Very late, and I completely didn't get a chance to play that. It's actually my cousins that first introduced me to both Perfect Dark and Conker's Bad Fur Day. Conker's Bad Fur Day was like the first, and the South Park game. I have such vivid memories of the South Park game, obviously not Rare, but they introduced me to those three games when I went down to their house one Christmas. And so I came to that, both Perfect Dark and Conker, very, very late. But, just an absolute blast. What I wanted to do as well, just as we wrap up our podcast tonight, is to take a minute to look ahead. What lies ahead for Rare? Now we've got Sea of Thieves on PlayStation and is continuing to do really well with its ongoing updates. They're sort of shifting gears again to sort of more meaningful updates, slightly more regularly. They're not sort of being beholden to seasonal drops. But obviously Everwild's cancellation was and the layoffs there were a huge, huge hit to their stability as a studio. I always thought they were kind of fairly safe within Microsoft, given the success of Sea of Thieves and their pedigree. If given keys to the castle, Sea of Thieves is an ongoing game, that's going to be there. You've had some high-profile departures, and you'd imagine that the majority of the legacy developers are no longer there, and they've gone to Playtonic or they've gone elsewhere. What Keys to the Castle? What are you greenlighting next for them?
I think they need to be careful. I would hope they've got something else in development other than Everwild. I'm not sure Microsoft would have cancelled it if they're not going to have another game coming out for 5 years. But if I was them, I would have Rare as like a consulting partner with a team that can actually release games, like Toys for Bob, as we've talked about, or whoever it is, to do either a new Banjo game or a proper remake of previous Banjo games. I think Banjo is the one that people are asking for. We obviously had the GoldenEye kind of remake, which was pretty good, and I think the safe option is for them to revisit in the same way that we've had Oblivion remaster, and we'll have a Fallout 3 or New Vegas remaster remake. They can do that. They can keep the studio going, while they maybe work on a bigger project in the background by kind of mining the back catalogue that they've got. But we've had all the remasters in Rare Replay, so they need to be meaningful, either remakes or like iterations on what they've done before, preferably in partnership with a Toys for Bob style.
I think that's really smart.
Output.
I hope very much that whatever comes next for them, that they hold off on the announcement, which I think Microsoft are in a position to do now, because they have enough studios that are now fairly well embedded, making stuff fairly consistently, until it's ready. I don't think we need to be announcing a teaser like they did with Everwild when they're apparently still conceptualizing what the game even is. Largely, I would imagine, leading to its cancellation. I'd love to know how far that game was in the pipe. I'd love to know how far through that was. I don't think we ever will, but
it's interesting that you don't hear the same stuff about that as you do about the MMO that was cancelled, that everyone was saying was really good. Perfect Dark, there's been some rumblings that it wasn't very good, and that's kind of there wasn't much that came out about Everwild saying it was in a great place, and everyone's sad that it's been cancelled. It was seems like it was probably the right thing to do, but
yeah. But for Rare's sake, I think they need to be encouraged to hold back on the reveal, even if they now go quiet for a couple of years outside of Sea of Thieves, and then show it when it's ready.
And I think if it's a remake or some sort of repackaging, or Xbox don't tend to announce them very far ahead. They usually leak, but like Oblivion was basically shadow dropped, except for the fact that it leaked. And I think they would do that again.
Yeah,
GoldenEye as well was the same, wasn't it? It was a very short window from when it was announced.
Announcement to release. No, I agree. Bossnader just coming into Twitch chat mentioning that if Fallout 3 gets a remake, you won't be seeing me for the next 2 years, which is great. Well, folks, that is going to wrap it up for our latest episode of System Link. You can find us on all of the things at Burly Media. That is Facebook, Instagram, Threads, as well as YouTube, Podbean, and Spotify. Also, please jump into our Discord community if you haven't already. We've got our first ever squad session, community games night, this Saturday. We're going to be playing the finals. We've already got 9 players signed up for that, ourselves included, of course, which is going to be really good fun. So please jump into that community. It's a really lively space, and we'd love to see any of you guys there. Shout out to everyone in chat tonight, both across YouTube and Twitch. Thank you for tuning in. Mike, where can people find you?
You can find me at theXboxGuide.com and at the Xbox Guide on Threads and Blue Sky.
Nice one. Well, folks, thank you again for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
See ya.